All right, I think we're gonna, we've just ended a large series on compliance. And so welcome everybody to the Humanize IT podcast. And with me back again is Skip. I mean, we've talked with 2, 3 people about compliance. So we're gonna do like a long run here. And we're coming off, and so we thought we'd break it up with, how are you creating value for your clients? And this goes for everything from how are you creating value for your family? How are you creating value with your friends? Like, what is it that they care about? And we cover this topic pretty routinely just
Mhm.
because perceived value is really hard for some people. And it's because you're working on things that you care about. If you're gonna, like, there was a book called the 5 love languages,
Uh-huh.
acts of
Yep.
service, gift giving, words of affirmation, um, quality time, and physical touch,
There
right?
you go.
And
Yep.
so you get
Trying
along
to think of
really
all
well
the
with
whole.
some people, and you don't
Yep.
get along well with others because they have the same love languages in common with you.
Uh-huh.
And I've even heard of salespeople like really recommending this book because you need to look at the person across the table from you and think, do they care about the same things I do? Do they
Yep.
receive praise in the same way I do? And so you find yourself in these tribes of people who think the same way you do, and you think, oh, no one else thinks the other way. It always works to tell them good job. And
Uh-huh.
for some people, they just want to know that you did something for them, or they want to know that you listened to them. So you got to figure that out. And that's just one piece of perceived value.
Yeah.
So I think,
A
go
tangent
ahead.
on that is, that was a pretty transformational sort of read for me. I kind of had this idea, I was just clueless. And that provided the clue, yes, I knew I was missing something. I didn't know what it was till I read that book. And it was, it helped with relationship with my wife and then my kids, and then more often with coworkers. And then when I moved into a management position, it was just this constant idea in the back of my head is like, what does this person need? And now executing on that's a whole other exercise, but at least you can start with being aware of, hey, these are some general categories, and nobody falls into one exclusively, but understanding what the people around you need, and specifically understanding what your clients need, what is important to them. And, we've worked with members from a variety of different areas, and an interesting little event. So we're always talking about, you don't have to be an expert in your client's business, right? They're the experts. I talked with a master MSP yesterday, and there's not a lot of them out there, but there's a few. And so their customers they're an MSP, and their customers are other MSPs. And so they're in the interesting position where, yes, they actually do know their client's business in very specific details. But our
Yep.
conversation came back around to, that doesn't matter that you know your client's business. All your clients are still unique. They're very different. And each one of them is going to have a different set
Yeah.
of needs and things that are really, really valuable to them. And you're going to need to zero in on what, even though and you might have a very valid opinion about how their business should run, it doesn't matter. You need to make
Yeah.
sure that you're identifying and working towards what your client values.
Yeah. I think that really hit home for me when I was doing schools, for instance, private schools, and they were all Lutheran schools at the time, that I was cranking through. And they all had different values, even
Mhm.
though their core system was similar. So
Yep.
they might be emphasizing one curriculum over another or a different style of teaching over another. So I should say their values were similar, but the style of school is very different. So if you've ever shot for school for your kids, like which one is best fit for your kids, you find that yes, all these public schools should be the same, but they're not. Some
Mhm.
emphasize their music program. They have a really great performing arts teacher there, and it attracts a lot of students. Another one has a great athletics program, and that's really key to what they're doing. Your clients are the same way. Doctors' offices might have a focus on pediatrics or oncology or skincare, whatever, dermatology, whatever it is, you've got to learn that so that you can speak their language. Otherwise, you're trying to sell to, Susan over here the same way you sold to Bob last week, and it worked really well with Bob, but Susan doesn't have the same priorities.
Yep.
So that's where you stop and you listen. And I think we
Yep.
talked about in a webinar a few weeks ago with Tim Golden, like you have to let your client speak 80% of the time. And so you got these 10,000 solutions in your head, and you've got to reprioritize them as your client is speaking to, oh my gosh, they would love this solution. And now they
Hmm.
feel heard. And it might be that you have to do something to show them that they're valued. You might have to say something to show them that they're valued. There might be a physical change in the environment they need to see to know that they're valued. You have to figure out what works for them. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you're going to work really hard and get nothing. I think I was chatting on another group and says, like, look, this is the reason why you get so much praise for swapping out that monitor for the admin assistant, but
Hmm.
no one gave you a single thanks for the 8 hours you worked last night upgrading the switch stack.
Yep.
Like, perceived value is all in the eye of the beholder. You don't get to control that. And a lot of times we try to control that by trying to explain how awesome we are. Think
Yep.
about all the complexities of everything I did last night and how much hard work it took me. Person across the table. Okay, so what do we get from that? Well, now your switches are up to date. Okay, how does that help my business? Well, you're more
Uh-huh.
secure. Cool. Now, did you
Yep.
take time to acknowledge the 8 hours they worked on policy development or hiring practices for
Yep.
their business? Did you acknowledge that? Did you look and see like they worked on the financial budget for the last 2 weeks, or reorganizing and structuring the budget? No, you didn't. You do the same thing to them, and they don't get a pat on the back for that. But in
Right.
IT, we're so obsessed with no one appreciates me. When was the last time you took time to appreciate the person across the table from you? Man,
Yep.
I really appreciate you for getting on top of that bill. That was great. And a good salesperson will do that. I really appreciate you for getting back to me soon. That doesn't happen very often. And,
Well.
just want to honor that.
Yep.
Being
No.
thankful for what the other person does will encourage them to be thankful for what you do.
Yep. Well, I think we all have these events in our experiences, and I've got one when back in my corporate days, and I had all of these field offices across all of continental U.S. It seemed like, and so I rolled out to one of the big ones for a big internal project, and so I get up there. I check in with the office, as normal. Hey, I'm here to, do IT work and kind of know a few of those people there. I'm still a little new with some of these people. I've been with the company a real long time. And so, kind of getting acquainted, but I check in and then I go back. They have a full data center at this field office. It's a big facility. And so I go back there and I'm working, I'm getting things prepped. And then I come in late at night and stay throughout the night into the weekend, getting all this done, working really, really hard to make sure that this facility doesn't have any downtime or as little downtime as possible, affecting as few people as possible. I worked really, really hard to make sure everything was going. And it was in the middle of nowhere. All right.
Yeah.
If anybody knows where Lysite, Wyoming is, I'm talking about the middle of nowhere. All right. And so I get all this done, and I mean, it is just a stellar success. And so it's the weekend, and I get back, come back, and I'm even in the office Monday morning, right? And I am sitting there all happy and breaking an arm, patting myself on the back, sort of deal. And my boss comes in and closes the door. All right. So it's one of those conversations. Is like, we need to talk about your trip to Lysite last week. We got some problems here. And I'm like, what in the world? I did a fantastic job. And what I didn't do was sit down and communicate with the team out there. I
Yeah.
didn't talk to them about what was important to them. And there was actually nothing really to do. All right. I didn't take the time to listen. And in my incredible successful trip turned into a recovery exercise because I didn't listen to my customers.
Yep.
And so we've got to ingrain that in everything that we do.
And you may think you're listening to your customers, but like, let's say you ask a question and you what we call railroad the conversation.
Mhm.
And that's where you ask a question that does not have any freedom to it. It's not open ended. So at the end of the conversation, you've only talked about the things that you want to talk about. Hey, do you want to buy this server? Hey, do you want to do SOC 2 compliance? Hey, and then you ask them all these questions. When were you curious about their company? Well, I asked them all sorts of questions today. Yeah,
Mhm.
were they open ended? They allowed them to talk about their business. That's why Skip has those two questions we talk about all the time. We do this repetition thing in the podcast because we want you to ingrain some things in your head. So if you're like, man, this is like the fifth time they've talked about this, you're correct. We're trying to get this ingrained in your head. So the two Q's for anybody listening are
Your number one source of revenue and your number one risk to that revenue.
yes, you should be always concerned about that for your clients. That those two questions will more than anything increase your value with your clients because you're concerned about the same things they are. If your biggest concern is the network and the assets on it, yes, that is a priority and that's your ownership. That's what you own, as in that is you, the ball you are holding. It is not the most important thing to you. The most
Mhm.
important thing still is how am I managing risk and how am I managing profit for my clients of my piece of it.
Yep.
So I'm in charge of IT assets. Now, what can I do with IT assets in this company to help them drive revenue and reduce risk? And if you can
Mhm.
do those two things when it comes to finance, now the client's like, oh my gosh, they helped me. And that's why we do that hot dog vendor citation. That hot dog vendor was the only one that was working at the concert
Mhm.
because their
Yep.
MSP gave them a 5G carrier hotel that was portable and they could take anywhere and it could always get connection even when the tower is congested for everybody else. They have connection. They don't know why. They just know it's a
Yep.
magic box that works. And so
Yes.
these things increase perceived value. Had you not helped them with that, make sure your logo's on that box, right? So every time they look over the box, my gosh, that's going. And then everybody else at the event's like, why are you connected and we're not? They look over and they see the box branded with your name on it going, that's it right
Yep.
there. That's our magic.
Yep.
And now you've got people calling you and asking you for, okay, whatever you did with the hot dog vendor, we need you help you with us with our euros
Mhm.
with our burgers, with our taco truck. And that increases your value more than anything you could do on selling switch stack. Every vendor out there is going to be like, "Oh, let me tell you how to sell more, how to do more." And in the end, it's all going to become down to relatability. Things you can do
Yep.
for free of like understand the person across the table from you. What do they care about? Oh, well, they're obsessed with telescopes. Cool. What does that have to do with their business? Not
Yeah.
much, but at least if you both are obsessed with telescopes, you have something to talk about. And if they happen to be a quality time person, your relationship with them is going to go through the roof. Then
Very
you got
much
the
so.
person next to them who is obsessed with CNC or woodworking, and they'll talk about it, but what they really want to do is they want to get things done at work. They want to do something with the
Mhm.
business that's going to grow it. That's an acts of service person. They want to see you actually doing something that's growing their business. But if
Yep.
you're just doing things that maintain their assets, you're gonna be like, cool, you're doing your job. But if you do something that helps grow their business, the acts of service person is gonna go, oh my gosh, this person is worth $1 million.
Mhm.
Again, understand the person across the table from you
Yep.
so
Well,
that
let me circle back around to something that you had said earlier. And Tim Golden's, and he mentioned that 80-20 rule and how much they prioritize that in their business. And that's an interesting metric that we work off of, that they're working off of. And when you and Tim were having that conversation, you mentioned one of the tools that we have internally. And so, we're doing so many meetings now with our clients through virtual sessions, through video sessions like this. And we have, as most people do, some sort of AI assistant, in your video calls, and it's doing all kinds of great stuff. The cool feature that we have in ours is that little status bar that pops up, that little window. and it gives a percentage of the conversation that you have been talking. And as you know, I do a lot of training sessions, and so the expectation is I'm going to probably be doing a lot of the talking, but I still keep an eye on that, especially when I'm not in some sort of training session. In my goal, so I'm a little different than Tim, but my goal is at least 50% of the conversation needs to come from whoever I'm talking to.
Yep.
And I keep that up there as a little benchmark. Hey, I'm getting into the 60 or the 70% range. It's time for me to shut up and listen
Yeah.
and let whoever's on the other end of this call drive this a little bit more. And so finding some tools like this are really, really helpful to help you literally, in my case, literally keep an eye on how much I'm talking versus the person I'm talking to. And that needs to be a really, really important element in your engagements.
Yeah. Value is hard. And the the problem with value is people have egos, especially if you like are introverted or I'm sorry, extroverted or introverted, they both have egos. But if you have this lack of insight into other people, you may think that you're doing the right things, but frustrated with that you're not being listened to. You're
Mm-hmm.
frustrated that this is not going well, that the client doesn't appreciate you, and those are key components to you're probably not listening enough or doing enough things that they care about.
That's it.
Because yes, you still have to do the boring things like upgrading switch stacks and doing things in the background where you're making things work. You will walk on water sometimes and no one knows what you did. That you just
Mm-hmm.
saved this business 6 hours of downtime.
Yep.
There are those moments and you will not be recognized for it because the perceived value is really low because they don't understand and they won't ever understand because they haven't been there. They can't relate to
Don't
it.
don't try to teach your clients technology so they appreciate all the magic that you do. It is not a valuable exercise to go through.
Yep. And so what we want to do is relate to them and show and give them things that they can see. Oh my gosh, the internet is a lot faster today. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that process is working better. Oh, I can now do this with my machine. This is great. All these things that are like, what can you show them that will help them understand that their company is running better because of you?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of IT people just don't get it. They think that I'm working really hard. I'm swapping PCs out. I'm building these things. They just don't get it. Yeah, but how many of those things are moving the needle for the business?
Mm-hmm.
Really ask yourself that question. What are you doing that's moving the needle for the business? If you're
Yep.
doing nothing that's moving the needle forward, helping them increase revenue or reduce risk to that revenue, then yeah, you're not going to be perceived as very valuable. You're just
Yep.
another employee. You're just another resource. You're like the Roomba that goes around and cleans the floor. It's doing its
Yep.
job, but it's not really making the house improved. It's just maintaining the house. Now, if
Right.
somebody came in and added new wood floors to your living room and replaced all that dingy carpet, you're like, man, that's great. I
Mm-hmm.
love this.
Yep.
This improved my house. If somebody came in and repainted your entire house, like, oh wow, this looks great. Now, do you think all the electrical engineers making sure there's power coming to your house every day? No, you just expect
Mm-hmm.
that to work.
Yep.
Do you thank the gas engineers for making sure the gas lines are maintained and updated? No, I just expect it. But
Yep.
the painter is going to get thanked. The
Uh-huh.
flooring person is going to get thanked because they made the needle move. And in IT, you can make the needle move, but you have to listen and learn what's priorities to them so you can choose the technologies that are going to make the needle move. I would say, as you're doing your job, 90% is operations. Make 10% of it something that moves the needle this year for your client. Just
Mm-hmm.
one project that's
Yep.
gonna move the needle. That's going to help them increase revenue or reduce downtime so they can generate revenue, like, the hot dog vendor with a 5G connection. Do something along those lines, and I watch what happens with your client relationships. That like 1 out of 10 things. make it something valuable to your client. Make it something they care about. Hey, Bob, what can I do for you this year that would really be appreciated and helpful
Yeah.
to your business? And they may
Well,
say, I don't know. I just keep doing what you're doing. Like, is there anywhere that you guys are struggling from generating revenue? And they're like, well, we have a hard time when the salespeople get on the road and they have the wrong contract in hand. Oh, do you want me to help you with document management? We can do versioning control and it's really easy in SharePoint. And you said a whole bunch of words they don't understand. Like, I can make sure that they have the right version of the document in hand very simply. Would you like us to
yep.
look into that for you? Oh my gosh, that'd be great. And so, because in his head, he's probably like, I lost $20,000 last year because we didn't have up to date contracts in the salespeople's hands and they had the wrong ones signed.
Yep. Well, that's really key. I mean, I get this conversation again. We talk to so many MSPs all the time, and this topic of I don't know what my clients think is important. That comes up pretty often, and so no, you're not going to know. So there is no magic knowledge base that we can tap into on that. Well, I guess there is, but it's not where you're looking for it right now. It's not in a vendor. It's not in a Cybex book or anything. It is with your clients. Just ask.
Yeah.
And you may have to, just like Adam was kind of at that scenario there, if you ask the question and they go, oh, just keep doing what you're doing, don't take that as an answer. That's not the answer,
Yeah.
right? You might have to dig a little bit. But there's two things that two really valuable to kind of sum up. There's really two valuable things that come out of that. One is now all right? Now you've got an opportunity to focus your efforts so they mean something to your clients. Yep. That's going to show up in your bottom line. Okay, that has a real spreadsheet value to it. All right, there's a dollar sign on that cell. All right.
Yep.
Now the second valuable thing is your clients are going to feel heard. They're going to feel connected. All right, and that's the relationship value. They're going to feel like, all right, these guys listen to me. They know me. They know what I need. And that is going to create the sticky customers that you like doing business with that are going to stick with you for a long time. So two really, really distinct values in different areas, but it is very, very appreciable to how your business is going to be successful if you listen to your clients.
And I would even say, like, as you talk to your clients in your opening line on your website, don't say, we get your business. We understand business. No, say, we are curious about how you do business so that we may support you and help you generate revenue and reduce risks to that revenue. That will resonate on your website. That will resonate as an opening line. We care. And we care so much that we will learn how you do business so that we can better align technologies to your revenue sources. Oh my gosh, game changer right there. I feel valued. And then you have to deliver on it. And that's where you as an engineer are going to have to think about things. They may not need that new server. I saw somebody complaining about their client didn't want a server. The client didn't want I can't remember what it was, something like some security thing. And then an event happened and then they had to clean it up. Like, why didn't the client listen to me? Like, well, chances are you weren't listening to your client. They didn't see what you were saying as valuable. Now, why is that? Why didn't they see what you were saying as valuable? Maybe they're in a budget crunch. Maybe they were they've just always done it this way. And it's always worked. How are you improving their business by doing these things? How are you helping them with their bottom line? I would doubt that engineer asked that question. They were so focused on they had the right answer for the right solution that they didn't think that they might be wrong. And so the client dismisses them because this guy just doesn't get it. He doesn't get what we're trying to do. So yeah, perceived value, how to create value with clients. You can check our history of podcasts. The perceived value or anything with value in the title in the history of our 200 and what are we up to 14 podcasts. Check those out. We repeat this phrase all the time: perceived value and being curious about your clients. Learn about their risks, learn about their sources of revenue, find out how technology supports those, and then you will be seen in an entirely new light.
There you go.
Thank you, Skip. See you
You
maybe
bet.
next week. I've got a lot of
All
podcasts
right.
out right now.
Sounds great.